couple of months ago, I hosted an IABC webinar with my friend, Martin Waxman, and he said something that has been rattling around in my brain ever since. He said, "It always bugged me that communications people missed out on SEO because that really should be a communications initiative." He's right. And it stings a little, doesn't it? Think back to when Marcus Sheridan was standing on every conference stage telling us that answering your customers' questions in owned media would save your business. It saved his pool company during the recession, after all. And he had example after example of how well it worked for other organizations too. That was a battle call aimed squarely at communicators. We're the ones who know how to answer questions with credibility and clarity. We're the ones who build trust with words. And what did we do? We decided SEO felt too technical and we handed it over to marketing. Then SEO professionals started pitching bloggers and high authority websites for backlinks, which, let's be honest, was media relations done very poorly by people who had never written a pitch in their lives. That was our work. We just were not in the room. I don't want us to do that again because the exact same shift is happening right now with AI. Your buyers are asking their favorite AI tool who to trust, what to buy, and who leads your category. And the early evidence says we're on track to repeat history. On this week's Spin Sucks podcast episode, we'll talk about exactly how to avoid history from repeating itself.
If you're a communications pro who works hard, doesn't compromise quality, and gets the job done, welcome home. We'll share our tips, tricks, and stories, and together we will change the face of PR. Spin sucks, but we don't. With the Spin Sucks podcast, here's Gini Dietrich.
Welcome back to the Spin Sucks podcast. I'm Gini Dietrich. Before we get started, I have a little tidbit for you. Did you know that if you can't finish watching right now, you can subscribe to the audio version of this show? We're on all the platforms where you get your podcasts, including Spotify and Apple, or you can subscribe to our newsletter at spinsucks.com. It's down in the footer, and you will receive every episode in your inbox every Tuesday morning from yours truly. Last week, we talked about the Lippincott CMO Outlook 2026 study, the one that found that only 28% of CMOs feel they have real organizational influence. And I argued that the missing piece isn't courage or better long-term brand argument. It's an operating system. This week, I want to zoom in on the finding that I think is the buried lead. CMOs are funneling investment into AI while pulling money away from the owned infrastructure, websites, content, user experience, loyalty, that determines whether we actually show up in AI answers at all. Only 12% rate their tech enablement as excellent, and only 11% say their organization is excellent at adapting new technology. What that means is that the money is going toward AI and away from the one asset AI actually needs. That's not a strategy. That's buying a fancy new stereo and then cutting the speaker wires. And not only can you not listen to your music on your fancy new stereo, but if AI doesn't cite you, you don't exist. Not to the buyer who asked ChatGPT for a shortlist, not to the journalist prompting Claude to summarize the key planet players in your space, not to the board member running due diligence through Perplexity before a meeting. The good news, though, is that this is fixable. Not with hope and not with a hack, but with engineering. I've been calling this work visibility engineering for a year now, and it has a manifesto, a growing body of practice, and as of this year, a set of metrics to prove it works. What it hasn't had until today is the playbook in one place to help you work through it. So I am here today to give you that playbook. 5 moves in order. None of them requires you to learn how to code. None of them requires you to learn new skills. All of them require you to stop waiting and to stop thinking that marketing is going to take this for you. This is your job. Your job. So first, you need to understand what the answer is built from. Before you can engineer your way into an AI answer, you have to know what the answer is made of. Muckrak's generative pulse research analyzed more than 1 million citations across the major AI tools, and the findings should reorganize your priorities immediately. 95%, 95% of the links that AI cites come from non-paid sources. 27% of those come from journalism or earned media. All of that to say, you cannot buy your way into the answer. The models also heavily favor recency. OpenAI's models in particular prefer content published in the last 12 months. Your incredible media hit from 2023, the models have moved on. Visibility is not a monument you build once. It's maintenance, it's consistency, it's something you have to keep up. And the definition of media just changed underneath us. Martin had another pithy quote, which is where that is concerned. He said, the definition of media just got broader. Anyone with a newsletter who has a following that is trustworthy, who is credible, and who has the authority is now considered media. The New York Times and the Wall Street Journal are bigger than ever for sure, but the LLMs are also reading and citing trade newsletters, niche podcasts, Substacks, and LinkedIn voices with real expertise. If your media list still looks like it did in 2019, you're pitching a fraction of the ecosystem that trains the models. Discoverability, Martin pointed out, is what media relations has always been at its core. He calls the whole discipline SEO++. It's the same skills as SEO plus everything communicators already do, which means nobody is better positioned to own this than you. Now that we have that out of the way, let's talk about the playbook. Move number 1 is to build your anchor. So everything starts with owned media. We used to call this cornerstone content, but it's essentially anchor content that answers the actual questions your buyers ask in the language that they ask them. It's not keyword stuff content. It's not content written for robots. Martin and I hit this hard on the webinar. You write for humans, and the LLMs make the connection. The models are trained to surface what's credible, useful, and clear, which is exactly what good owned media has always been. To do this well, pull the 20 questions your sales team, your customer service inbox, and your event booth hear over and over and over again. Organize that content into pillars derived from those questions. Then publish against them consistently, remembering that recency bias means we wrote about that in 2024 does not count. We wrote about that in 2025 does not count. Heck, at this point in the year, we wrote about that in January probably doesn't count. This is Marcus Sheridan's playbook, a decade and a half later with higher stakes. They ask, you answer, the machine cites. So that's move number 1. Move number 2 is structure it so the machines can read it. This is where we get technical. You yourselves do not have to do the technical piece of this, but you do have to know that it's being done by somebody who understands the technical side of things. Now, this is historically where we bail out and where I'm going to hold your hand and I'm not going to let go because you have to get through this move so that you can get to the others and continue to own this piece. The technical gap between SEO and GEO, so generative engine optimization, is much smaller than the hype suggests. Structured headings and subheadings, themes instead of keyword density, schema markup, and structured data so the models understand what your page is, not just what it says, and clean site architecture. It's the same fundamentals. We covered a version of this in the visibility gap episode a few weeks ago. But there's one line from Martin that I'd put on a sticky note above your desk. Are you ready to write this down? Or pause so you can write it down. If you're driving, come back to it. Here you go. PR people need to work with the IT folks. PR people need to work with the IT folks. I know. But the technical human bridge is exactly where this gets won or lost. You don't have to implement the schema yourself. You have to know it exists. You have to ask whether your site has it, and you have to sit in the meeting where it gets prioritized. The comms team that shows up in that meeting owns AI discoverability and visibility. The one that says, too technical, hands it away again and again, That one we don't want. We want the comms team that shows up to own the AI visibility. Okay, so moves are 3 through 5. Move 3 is to earn the citations. Owned media makes you findable. Earned media makes you believable to humans and to the models. Remember that 27% of AI citations come from journalism, not the big fancy, New York Times and Wall Street Journal kind of journalism, but newsletters, podcasts, social media posts, in some cases, Reddit and LinkedIn, for instance, trade publications. All of that matters in journalism. Every real media placement is now training data, but the redefined media landscape means that your earned media strategy needs 2 tracks. Number 1, it does still need to find the traditional outlets that anchor authority and the new media, the newsletter authors, the podcasters, and the credible individual voices the models also read and cite. And then number 2, that's the second track. This should feel familiar. It's relationship building with people who have audiences and credibility. It's literally the job. The only thing that changed is that the payoff now includes being structured into an AI's understanding of your category. One more thing. Make sure your earned dimensions and your owned content tell the same story. When third parties describe you one way and your website says something else, the models get confused. And confused models either hallucinate or they skip you. And if one of those 2 things happens, you don't exist. And if you don't exist, business goes, you're in charge of this. Consistency isn't just brand hygiene anymore. It's machine legibility. No more bios for each occasion and one message for the website and another for your pitches. Everything has to be consistent. Move number 4, distribute through shared and accelerate with paid. Shared media does 2 jobs in this system. It distributes your anchor content and your earned media wins to the humans who reshare them. Some of them are in the new media bucket from Move 3, and you start to compound, see how this starts to work together. And shared media also allows you to listen to the questions and objections that keep showing up. Those are next quarter's anchor content. And so the flywheel moves on. Paid media is the last move, not the first, and it's small and surgical. Put modest money behind the owned content that's already earning citations to accelerate what's working. When Martin ran his own organization through our PACEL model diagnostic live during the webinar, more on that in a second, that was literally the first action item that surfaced. He needs to use a small paid media investment to boost the anchor content that was already carrying the whole system. Paid can't buy you into the answer, but it can speed up everything that gets you there. And then move number 5, measure like an engineer. Engineers don't hope. They baseline, they measure, they remeasure, and they build. You need to do the same. Your baseline is where you actually show up today. Which sources cite you? How does that compare to your competition? From there, you track the 4 metrics that matter for AI visibility: LLM visibility, citation frequency, narrative share of voice, and credibility loop close rate. And you report them next to pipeline, not next to impressions. And this is where I get to tell you about my favorite moment from the IABC webinar. I mentioned a minute ago that Martin volunteered his own organization, the Future of Marketing Institute, the student-run group he works with at the Schulich School of Business, as a live guinea pig for the PACEL model diagnostic. His readout was 50% overall. Owned scored 67%, earned scored 54%, shared got a 10%, and paid got 5%. Is that a bad score? No. It's a useful score, but it's not a bad score. In 60 seconds, Martin knew his owned media was solid, his earned media was respectable, and his next dollar an hour belonged to shared distribution and a small paid boost. That is the whole point. A score is not a grade, even though we were trained all throughout school to think of it that way. In this case, it's not. It's not your grade, it's your blueprint. I have one more Martin quote to share. He said, "Every time we talk to a machine, we're coding with words. We're building something with words. Building things with words is what communicators have always done. Visibility engineering isn't a new job. It's the job you have always done with an engineering discipline wrapped around it. Anchor content, machine readable structure, citation worthy relationships, systematic distribution, real measurement. Run together, they're not 5 tactics, they're an operating system that feeds itself. We cannot sit back and be reactive this time. Martin said that too, and he's right. We have to be proactive and show how what we do provides this new type of value. Communicators sat out on SEO and spent 15 years watching marketing take credit for discoverability. Not this time. This time, this one is ours. And one caveat before you sprint off, this playbook gets you into the answer. It doesn't control what the answer says about you, whether the description is current, accurate, or fair. That's the other half of this discipline, and it's an episode of its own coming in a few weeks. If you would like to learn more about visibility engineering, join us in the SpinSucks community. It's a great place to get advice, brainstorm ideas, and build real relationships with your peers. You can find us at spinsucks.com/community. That's spinsucks.com/community. And make sure you follow us on LinkedIn, TikTok, and Instagram. We're posting tips, how-tos, cheat sheets, and more every week. I'll see you next week. Bye.